Right, as you can see on the screen, I decided to give this talk the title of The Words We Are, the mental representation, the mental lexicon as a representation of our world. Now, what am I going to talk about? I'm going to talk about words and how words are important for us speakers of a language, human beings, and the importance of language in our essence of human beings, of humans, right? Now, language is really it's like a magical ability that we humans have. We are endowed with the faculty of language, as you may know, right? And it is something that is specific of human beings, being able to speak, being able to speak. In the same way as, for example, spiders are born with the knowledge, within inverted commas, of spinning webs, we are endowed with the faculty to speak. And this is why we talk about native speakers. Native speakers, not native writers. Writing is like a secondary thing, right? Speaking is what comes first. Now, language also allows us to transmit knowledge or ideas across minds. Right? This is a very interesting thing. Right? Something is going on right now in your head while you are listening to me. And I'm speaking and trying to communicate some ideas to you. And something is going on in your head thanks to language. In this case, I speak in English. Of course, something important is that language is a very powerful tool in the construction of the world. With language, we name things that happen or things that exist, things that are in the world. And by giving them a name, what we are doing is becoming more aware of the existence of such a thing. Perception is facilitated by the word, by the language we give to something that is or happens in the world. Yeah. Now, in fact, one of my passions, as Professor Moscovic mentioned before, one of my passions is dealing with affability. What is affability? Homo habilis. We say that we are Homo sapiens, we are Homo habilis. Affability. What is affability? Affability is the quality of being affable. That is, it is the art of expressing what one wants linguistically. So I urge you to try to master your language so that you can effectively communicate what you want to say, right? In the best way possible, right? We are words. We human beings, we are words. Now, the power of words. How could we summarize the power of words? It's impossible to summarize what the power of words is. But I want to highlight just a couple of ideas about words and you will see how words are so important for us as human beings. Listen, words arouse emotions. You get moved when you hear something, right? Arouse emotions. Words cheer us up. We may be under the weather, and a friend comes and says just a couple of words, and then something changes in you. And it is through words. Words guide us and give us hope. You don't know what to do, and then you talk to someone, and someone tries to give you some hints, some help, some advice, and it is with words. So then you find your way. No? And words matter, and I would say they matter a lot in our daily lives. If you master your language, any language, Malaysian or Spanish or English now, you get an idea of the person you are with at the moment that person sort of speaks. So speech and the way you speak like your presentation card, as it were, for the rest of the people. And you immediately have an idea of who I am by the way I talk to you, right? This is very, very important. And last but not least, words are creative elements that shape the world. Yeah, when you're trying to communicate something, you use language in order to shape the idea that you want to communicate. And that idea may already have a name, but you don't know about it, but you build it, you build let's say the concept linguistically by using your tools, the tools you have at hand in the language you are speaking, right? So words, language, words as elements that create some kind of world, give form to the world we are in, right? Now, words are very important to any speaker, because listen, one of the fascinations about language and about words is that words can talk about the outside world. For example, I can say that chair over there. When I say that chair over there, it's that thing in the outside world here in this classroom. Or I say the TV set is on. So these are things that are out there in the world. Well, that's the easy part. But you know, words also talk about other possible worlds, worlds that are not the visible here and now situation. And this is thanks to language. So words can, have you ever, this is probably the first time you read that, you hear this, the Queen of the United States of America, that doesn't exist, but it is now in your head. And my idea, the Queen of the United States of America, the first time probably in your lives that you have had that thought in your mind. It's thanks to language. Or Robin Hood's private helicopter. Robin Hood's private helicopter. You all understand. This is the matter with this. You all understand, even if that doesn't exist, and it is the first time you hear this expression, right? Or things that are important to ascertain. Things are impossible to ascertain. The most distant point from Earth, where is that? It's impossible to determine. But you can talk about that anyway, even if you will never be able to determine what point that is. Or the first person ever to use the English language. We don't know who that first person was, but we can talk about that, right? And it is only with language, and something pops up in your head when you are listening to it. And this is the important thing, what pops up in your head thanks to words. So this is why I say words are so important. Mayer and Groves summarize this idea, this importance of language for human beings as language is our humanity. I mean, a very short quotation, yeah, but it captures very well this essence that I want to make you aware of. That language is a fundamental element in us human beings, right? Now, the classical debate, of course, this is not something new. Talking about these things go back to classical times. The classical debate is to try to establish some kind of, to try to determine what the relationship is between mind and language. Precisely, this is what I'm talking about. Mind and language. What happens in the mind with language? And I give you this question, just food for thought. Food for thought. You can talk about it. We could perhaps discuss this at the end if we have time and if you like. Do we need a natural language to think? When you think, do you think in Galician? Do you think in Spanish? Do you think in English or in other language? Do you need a language in order to be able to think, to structure your thoughts? Do you dream in Galician unconsciously? Do you dream in Galician, in Spanish, in a language? Some people say yes, some people say no, I don't use a language to think. Noam Chomsky mentioned the existence of mentalese. We have Portuguese, Chinese. We also have mentalese, which is the language of mental cogitations, the language, some kind of abstract language that is used for thinking for what is called mental qualifications. I leave that to you, just for thinking. Aristotle said that language communicates ideas, or language is a receptacle for ideas. Okay, the idea of communication, you will know about it. Being a receptacle, imagine you have a container. Words are the container in which we have ideas inside. Yeah? And this is a very nice and very practical metaphor, because in everyday language, we find examples like this. I mean, in everyday speech, when we talk about these things, people say, there are a lot of ideas in that sentence. Ideas in a sentence. So the sentence is like a container, and then there are lots of ideas in it. Yeah? Or I can put the same idea in different words, rephrasing. Yeah? So meaning and language, and you can rephrase the same meaning, the same content with different words, different containers. Or you can get the same meaning across in different ways. You can communicate the same meaning in different linguistic structures, words, etc. And this is absolutely true. And we all feel this. I mean, it's not new. Now, the classical analysis is one done by Ogden and Richards in the triangle meaning. This is found in semantics. When we do semantic theory, this is a classic in semantic theory. Ogden and Richards triangle of meaning, and they say that in order to study meaning, what we need is to see the connections between these three things, language, mind, and the world. Everything boils down to this, to the relationships that exist between language and the world, language and the mind and the world. Yeah? I just leave you that there as a reference. If you want to explore that, Ogden and Richards is the basis of everything, and this is called the triangle of meaning. Yeah. Throughout history, there have been many statements as regards this question of language and the world, etc. Charlemagne, the Roman emperor, once said, to have a second language is to have a second soul. A statement that language crafts reality. We can sort of build reality, craft reality as a craftsman with language. Very interesting. Then Sapir-Whorf, the Sapir-Whorf theory, you may know about this. Language is more than just a communication tool. It determines our perception of reality and influences our behavior. Absolutely true. See the connection between language and reality and the way we behave as human beings, users of language. Yeah. And finally, I want to introduce you to one of my favorite philosophers, linguists. He's said to be, Chomsky aside, the most important and relevant philosopher-linguist of the 20th century, Wittgenstein. Of course, Chomsky is much more popular, as it were, in linguistics, but Wittgenstein is true. He's Austrian, born in Austria, but then he has a British nationality, citizenship. And this is perhaps the most famous quote by him. The limits of my language mean the limits of my world. Language and world. Now, it's important in this quotation, the limits of my language are the limits of my world. What does that mean? This means that language and the world must be understood as two closely related entities, but they are not independent. Language and the world are not independent. They are necessarily related. Okay? And the second idea is that language, of course, is part of the world. The propositions that are made in a language represent the reality in which we live. Now, out of Wittgenstein's ideas, there was another man called Willem Dilthey, and he's responsible for one of my, let's say, favorite concepts in linguistics, in philosophy of language / linguistics, and it is the concept of Weltanschauung. Welt is a German word. Welt means world, world. Anschauung, Schauung in German means to see, to look at. Schauen. Anschauung means perspective or view. What is the concept of Weltanschauung? Vision of the world, perspective of the world. And what I want you to remember from this is that all languages contain their own Weltanschauung, a vision of the world. That is, when you study English, you don't just study vocabulary or grammar. In fact, you also get the way English speakers understand the world. It's not just a pure mechanical thing that what you learn, but in fact you are becoming aware of the Weltanschauung of English speakers, the way they conceive of the world. Yeah, and the same with any language. Yeah, the same with any language. How do we conceptualize reality? We can see different things, or we can see things, the same thing in a different way. And I want to put you to a test now. Take a look at this. What do you see there? Can you tell me? Feel free to speak. What do you see there? Okay, you see a duck. Everybody sees a duck there. A rabbit. Yeah, exactly. A duck or a rabbit. Do you see the rabbit? Yeah. Depending on the perspective. Left to right, right to left. Either a duck or a rabbit. You see the rabbit? The ears, the eye of the rabbit, but the other way, it's the beak. Yeah? Yes, it's the same object, the same, let's put it more philosophically, the same reality, but we give them different meanings. What do you see there? I mean, that's what is exemplified there in that drawing. The object is exactly the same. One says it's a 6. The other one, no, it's a 9. Both are right. It depends on the perspective. The very same thing can be interpreted as or differently, right? Linguistically speaking, this happens every day. And I'm going to give you a few examples. You can be ending a pregnancy. We know what that is. You can be liberating Ukraine, or you can be redistributing wealth. But for some other people, the same, let's say, facts are worded in a different way, as if they were changing the reality being described. Ending a pregnancy for some people, healing a fetus for some other people. And it's the same thing, exactly the same, but the way to express it linguistically is different. Liberating Ukraine. Putin wants to liberate Ukraine, but in fact is invading Ukraine. That's a different perspective of the same thing, the war, which was not called war at the beginning. Remember that? And it is the same fact, and you give them different names, you see. Or our politicians, yeah? Redistribute your wealth, confiscate your earnings. You are too wealthy, too rich, so I want to take part of your money and distribute that for the rest of the population. You understand? It's the same idea, the same fact, but with different words. This happens every day. Every day we speak, we give a perspective of things. Now, I'm sure that in English this is common practice we do in grammar classes to talk about grammatical and non-grammatical expressions, right? Grammatical and grammatical, right, wrong. And I want to add 2 more to this discussion. And it is the concept of something being unnatural or something being natural in speaking English in this case, right? Example. It is usually believed that words like strong and powerful are more or less synonyms. They are like pseudo-synonyms. This is why I use that symbol, pseudo-synonyms. And you can talk about a strong argument or powerful arguments, and both are correct. Both are grammatical, both are natural ways of expressing this. However, when applied to, for example, when in combination with, for instance, tea, you can't say powerful tea. You talk about strong tea. Tea is strong, not powerful. And a car is not a strong car, it's a powerful car. Even if strong and powerful are more or less the same, are pseudo-synonyms, near synonyms, right? So here, linguistics starts playing an important role in the way you start pairing words to make more complex utterances, expressions, right? So we have to be very careful because these are examples of collocations. Collocations sound right to a native speaker because that's their natural way of saying things. Whereas when the combination is not the right combination, the result is an unnatural expression. They say it sounds wrong, even if they will understand. This is the key. Okay, se me entiende? Sí. Yeah, yes, but that's not the way to say it in English, in natural English. Okay, so we have to be aware and be very careful with this when using with English, right? I give you some expressions. We say natural expressions are saying something like the fast train, fast food, quick shower, or a quick meal. But we don't say quick train. We don't say quick food or fast shower or to have a fast meal today because we are short of time. No, we say quick, not fast. All right? Natural versus unnatural. Yeah, and I give you now a few examples. You can check them later, just at home. This is an area of difficulty for both native speakers and also especially for non-native speakers. Combinations of adverbs and adjectives. In English, you can say completely false, entirely false, absolutely false, downright false, but you cannot say fully false. But fully is a synonym or is more or less like absolutely or like completely or like entirely. I mean, but the combinations sometimes give us like odd combinations, yeah? Or with satisfied, all of them are right except for downright. You can't say downright satisfied, right? You can't say downright asleep. You can't say absolutely asleep. You say fully asleep, yeah, apart from sound asleep, etc., right? The typical. And completely asleep. And entirely. The fun thing about entirely asleep is right, is naturally right in that sense. Only if you have a negative before. You say, oh, the baby is not entirely asleep yet. And that is fully natural in English, but you need the negation first. So another point to consider, whether it is a positive or a negative statement or expression in this case, right? We have to be very careful, right? To sound, if we want to sound natural, okay, this is the point. And the same happens with adverbs and verbs. Yeah? The same happens with verbs. To wave, you know what to wave, a very complex concept, waving like this, that's wave. In English, you wave widely or better frantically. That's the adverb, to wave frantically. Or widely, but not furiously or fiercely or strongly, which are more or less in the same domain, semantic field, right? More or less similar. To criticize, yeah, you criticize strongly, fiercely, but not frantically. Really. And to attach something strongly or fiercely, but not furiously, wildly, or frantically. These give us unnatural combinations. So let's keep an eye on this, right? Let's keep an eye. This is a very interesting area, I think. This is natural English. What is natural English? Natural English is, if you want to be natural, if you want to sound natural in English, you have to try and be polite. What is that? To be euphemistic. In English, being polite is being euphemistic, right? And you should avoid being offensive. That is, you should avoid being too direct when you speak. Of course, you may need to do it, but, you know, if you want to be a sounding, natural sounding speaker, then you should go for being euphemistic, avoid being too direct. And let's concentrate on here the ones on the left. We can say she's unemployed, he's homeless, you are fired, she died, okay, or it's a lie, or they are deaf. Okay, that's fine. That's plain English. Is this the way English people naturally express these ideas? Well, not quite. There are like more natural ways of expressing these very simple ideas. And these are the ones I give you there. We don't say, she's not really unemployed. She's between jobs, or she's considering her options. That's a much nicer way of saying that in English, right? Or for example, he's not homeless, he's on the streets. Yeah? Or for example, she didn't die, we've lost her. Yeah, that's nicer. That's a nicer way, more elegant way of saying it, probably. Saying that something is a lie is like too rude or too strong or too direct. Well, it's not a lie. It's an alternative fact, which is, politically correct language in a way. You are just going roundabout. Or they are deaf, they are hearing impaired. Yeah, this kind of vocabulary to avoid showing that the person is sort of deaf. Or you are not fired. We are going to let you go. We are going to let you go. You are sacked. You are given sack. So these ones are like the more natural ways of expressing the same ideas. Notice the same idea in different words. The importance of words, coming back to the title. Yeah. Now, Flora Lewis, with this quotation, learning another language is not only learning different words for the same thing. As I told you before, it's not just learning vocabulary, but learning another way to think about things. It is a very interesting quote, what is behind. And you know that if we compare English and Spanish, there are some concepts that we do have in English, which we don't have like equivalent concepts in Spanish, and we have to sort of go running around that. Toes or dedos del pie, we have to be more specific. We homesick, la morriña, nostalgia, you know about that. We know, thanks Spanish language, thanks to the Galician word, is now Spanish, la morriña. To type, have you ever thought about typing? You know what to type is. Now you are typing. How do we say that in Spanish? Would it be natural if I say that you are mecanografiando? No, but type used to be mecanografiar. How do we express that nowadays in English? I don't know. Escribir en el ordenador. Teclear, typing teclear, all right? But it used to be mecanografiar, so typing, not mecanografia, right? Waving. But waving is like this. It's not kings and queens. No, waving. Hey, hello. That's waving. That's a difficult concept to express in Spanish. Yeah? Porque saludar con la mano puede ser. Well, this is shake hands, pero saludar también con la mano, right? Or lock. Lock. You need lock. You need some kind of key, some kind of something, locking, con llave, con un candado. So we need to add that because we don't have an equivalent. Or to stare, and this is very difficult. English has verbs for verb and adverb in Spanish. Staring, mirar fijamente, right? For which we need two words. And the opposite happens in Spanish and English. In Spanish, we have un puente, tenemos puente. Yeah, a long weekend, or even, puente sometimes is when you have a working day in the middle, and then you have a holiday, and then you have a weekend, and then you have a puente. Yeah, how to express that in English? Long weekend. El color pardo, parduzco. We don't have a word for that in English. You have to say between gray and brown. There is no word for that. Or la merienda, no? Vamos a merendar. It's a snack. It's having a snack? No, it's not a snack. Is it the afternoon tea? Well, I don't have so much food as in the afternoon tea. yeah, but merendar, yeah. El pincho de las 11, the 11s, we say in English, right? Because it's like the snack in the morning, yeah? Para la merienda, what is that? Tutear, yeah, we don't have that in English because tutear is addressed informally because we don't have the two-step distinction. Or trasnochar, a very typical Spanish concept that we don't have equivalent in English for trasnochar. Trasnochar, is it to stay up all night? More than that. I'm sure that when you think about trasnochar, many other shades of meaning pop up in your head, apart from staying up all night, all right? Or estrenar ropa, to wear for the first time, yeah? We don't have that in English. Yeah? Now, we have to be very careful. We are coming to the end now. Languages differ in the way they conceptually describe events. This is a very interesting thing. If you do translation, for example, this is very interesting. In English, the natural way of saying it is something like, I walk to school. I walk to school. Could you say, I went to school by walking, or I went to school on foot? Yeah, yes. And they understand, but this is not the natural way of expressing it, because English tends to put that in the verb. I walk to school versus Spanish. In Spanish, we never say caminé al colegio o anduve al colegio. No, we say fui al cole, andando, caminando, o a pie, formal level, a pie. Okay? But because the way you go is in a different word, in a different container. Remember Aristotle? Words, containers in which you put ideas. So, and this is the natural way. And English contrasts sharply with Spanish. It's just the opposite way of expressing, describing the event across languages. This is very interesting, I think, because our mind is working in different ways. Right? We are words. The concept of Weltanschauung, every language has a perspective of the world in it. That situation, what do you say in English? In English, we say, I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for your loss. Full stop. You are very nice, polite. I'm sorry for your loss. But says not really, it doesn't say much about being, the empathy or the relationship with the person. Whereas in Spanish, le acompaño en el sentimiento. Accompaniment with the person, y el sentimiento. That's a feeling. Loss is like loss, doesn't mean something. Loss, okay, you lose someone, sentimiento is a feeling, y te acompaño, you're not alone. The language is completely different. All these shades of meaning, but these are the two natural ways of expressing condolences. Yeah, in English and in Spanish. Weltanschauung, the vision of the world. As suggestions for study topics, if you are interested in all these things, I give you a few ideas. For example, if you do corpus linguistics, I think you could analyze semantic fields, trace the coordinates, defining the Weltanschauung of the time frame chosen. If you would like to, the 16th and 17th century, and how whatever semantic field is expressed linguistically in that time frame. Or research on the expression and evolution of a given concept over time. How to express, how to express empathy, for example, right? And then phonological, the kind of words, phonology, morphology, syntax, etc., semantics. If you want to do translation studies, if you can use 3 languages, 2 mother tongues, and then 1 foreign one. Translation difficulties from one language to another caused by the Weltanschauung of the different languages. The Weltanschauung from Spanish and from English. Fascinating topic. Contrastive analysis, yes. Imagine different translations for the same source text. And why they are different? Probably because the Weltanschauung, you analyze the vision of the world that is behind the translation. I think that could also be interesting. Or analysis of semantic fields and their translations, how to express certain areas of meaning in different languages. And also the stylistics and discourse analysis, another fascinating, very interesting topic for study or for research. To study the study and interpretation of texts in all types in regard to the choice of language. Yeah, stylistics deals with the artistic and aesthetic use of language, right? For example, in literary works of all kinds, and the effects that it has on the recipients. There are many different things. I'm sure you could find something interesting in either one of these areas of linguistic study, and I think they are worth pursuing. Because you get many things out of them, and you get sort of richer inside, not just intellectually, but as a person, and eventually you get richer. I just want to leave you with a final thought as the end of my talk, and it's this idea: words make up a worldview, yeah, a Weltanschauung, a perspective. Remember that the words we use make a perspective, our perspective of understanding the world. Right, so thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Francisco. I don't know whether we have some minutes for any questions you'd like to ask. Any questions or doubts or concepts that you have not?
Yes.
I was thinking about translation for graduate chat.